Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the qualifying report for the French Grand Prix. So let's just jump straight into this one then, and based on what we saw last year and in practice so far this year in France, it will probably not come as too much of a surprise that Mercedes made it a record 63rd front row lockout today at Paul Ricard, with Lewis Hamilton finishing nearly 0.3 of a second clear of Valtteri Bottas. Charles Leclerc was the only other driver within a second of pole, with Max Verstappen fourth for Red Bull. It was an absolutely cracking session for McLaren, more on them a little bit later, but Lando Norris ended the session in fifth with teammate Carlos Sainz just behind in sixth. A very poor day for Sebastian Vettel, qualifying down in seventh. He did report an upshift issue on his first run during Q3, but did later go on to say that he just could not get the best out of his car and struggled with inconsistent grip from lap to lap. A really tough Sunday ahead for him. Daniel Ricciardo ended up in seventh, but at time of recording, he is under investigation for an incident involving Kimi Raikkonen and Romain Grosjean. Basically, the Aussie was on the inside of the corner. Kimi ended up off the track trying to avoid him, and the Finn rejoined just in front of Grosjean. Now, if there are any developments on that between me recording now and this video going out, I will, of course, post a link to an article in the description and in the comments section along with the timestamps. Not a good afternoon at all from Pierre Gasly, just frankly not good enough. He just scraped through to Q3 and ended up P9 ahead of Antonio Giovinazzi, who outqualified his teammate and rounds out the top 10. Pierre really needs to pull his finger out, and quickly. Alex Albon ended the session in 11th ahead of Kimi Raikkonen in 12th, who is of course under investigation as I mentioned a moment ago. Nico Hülkenberg is 13th and well off his teammate in the end. A bit of a surprise, but he is apparently running the older spec power unit, whereas Ricciardo is running the new spec. So maybe that'll account for some of the pace there. Sergio Perez ended up 14th with Kevin Magnussen down in 15th. Haas really struggling again. Daniel Kvyat qualified 16th, but will be starting from the back of the grid after taking a load of new power unit components. And he was just ahead in the session of Romain Grosjean, who was 17th, and Lance Stroll, who once again dropped out in Q1, was 18th. George Russell finished ahead of Robert Kubica again, but the Brit will drop back after receiving a 15-place grid drop for taking a new energy store and some control electronics. As I've already said, that is the provisional results at time of recording and could change between now and tomorrow's race. But if anything does change this afternoon, I will post a link below. When it comes to strategy, as you saw there, most of the top 10 are starting on the medium tyres, with the exceptions being Gasly and Giovinazzi, and that could prove absolutely vital because the yellow tyre is thought to be the better race tyre. Pirelli predicted before the weekend that they expected a one-stop race. However, as mentioned in the preview, it is still forecast to be very hot tomorrow, with temperatures currently set to hit highs of 30 degrees Celsius. In practice, drivers were really struggling with the tyres and to keep them alive, so management will likely be a big factor during the race, and perhaps we may even see some drivers switching to a two-stopper, but that will more likely be in the midfield rather than right at the sharp end. Having said that though, Toto Wolff did say that making the tyres last and therefore making a one-stopper work could well be very challenging. What I'm basically saying is that tomorrow it's all going to be about tyres. Right then, what did the top three have to say after the session? Well, Lewis Hamilton was pretty delighted to have beaten Valtteri Bottas to pole, but actually believes that his lap could have been even better had he managed to nail his final run and not made a mistake. Through Q1 and Q2, I think Valtteri just had the edge and I was still dialing in the car. Once I got to Q3, I knew where I had to find the time, and it was just about going and doing it. The first lap was fantastic. The second run, I was on for one of the best laps that I'd done. I was up, I think, 4.5 tenths coming into the second to last corner, and I think I just lost the back end partly through the wind or maybe going too quick. But nonetheless, really happy. It's crazy because it never gets old. It never gets easier. It's always such a challenge, regardless of the position you're battling for. If anything, it's getting harder and harder to get these poles. Valtteri's been doing some epic laps through practice and qualifying in these first races. Hamilton did mention he gapped to Ferrari over one lap, but feels that the battle will be much closer between the two teams in tomorrow's race. And by the way, today's pole position is the 86th pole of the Brit's career. His teammate Valtteri Bottas says that the change in wind direction was a factor for him in Q3, but did also go on to say that his focus was already on tomorrow's race. In the end, Lewis managed to get some better laps and deserves to be on pole. From my side, I felt my first lap was okay, but the wind direction changed throughout qualifying. In turns 8 and 9, I've been struggling a bit all weekend. I found some good lines there, but then they didn't work when the wind direction changed. It's just fine details here and there are no massive things. In the second run, I was just a bit unlucky with no cars ahead. I had no tow at all, so I was losing time in all the straights. So I had to make the most out of the last corners to catch up and kind of lost it there. I think the race start is going to be one of the keys for me tomorrow, so I'll focus on that tonight. It has been a really strong package here this weekend, that's obviously enjoyable, and hopefully it will be the same tomorrow. It is going to be an interesting run down to turn 1 on Sunday. As we've seen multiple times this season, the start is crucial when it comes to the fight between the two silver arrows. Bottas really could do with the win tomorrow, so I do wonder just how aggressive he will be willing to go. And finally for this part, while Charles Leclerc was happy with his own performance overall, he did admit that he and Ferrari are at a loss as to why they are struggling so much in the final sector this weekend, but he believes it could well be grip related. I think it is general grip around the corners, to be honest. We are quite quick in the straights, but in the corners struggling a bit more. This weekend there is something interesting that we didn't understand completely yet. In Sector 1 or 2 we don't seem to be too far off, or at least during the weekend in FP1, FP2 and FP3, but in Sector 3 we are losing quite a lot actually. We need to work on that and try to understand where is the issue. I was completely aware that my weak point in the last few Grand Prix was putting the car in the right window for Q3, so I worked on that and I am happy to see improvement. Now just after the session, Lewis Hamilton said that he was looking forward to a fight with Leclerc in the race, but in my opinion, realistically I think it will be more about Charles cementing that third place. You never know though. Okay then, so following some of your feedback after Canada, I've decided to replace my race one to watch with my performer of the day, or driver of the day, or lap of the day, whatever it's going to be called. Basically a driver or team that I think deserves an extra mention for their qualifying performance. For this one, I'm not going to look at a specific driver, but I'm going to have to go with a team. What a day for McLaren. As you saw earlier, they locked out the third row with Norris just ahead of Sainz. Absolutely brilliant performance, and you could see it coming all throughout practice. They looked strong yesterday and this morning and managed to transfer that pace to qualifying. They also start the race on the best tyre as well. That team was full of confidence this afternoon. They had the speed and completely deserve a hell of a lot of praise. And from a personal perspective, it is so awesome to see McLaren challenging at the sharp end of the grid for this weekend. Okay, it is only this weekend, but it's a huge step in the right direction, although Lando Norris did say it's very much track specific, but we'll see in Austria. Let's be completely honest, it will be tough for them to fend off Sebastian Vettel in the race tomorrow, but it's going to be fascinating to see the fight between them, Daniel Ricciardo and Pierre Gasly. Great stuff. Well done, McLaren. That is it then for this weekend's qualifying report, but don't forget you can let me know your thoughts about today's session and on tomorrow's race in the comment section down below. Now, I will be back tomorrow shortly after the race with some live reaction to the French Grand Prix, and the full race debrief will be out as usual on Monday. In the meantime, though, you can follow me over on social media. The links to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course to Discord are all in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.